The night was unusually quiet in the small town of Riverside. The streets were empty, lit only by flickering lamps, and the faint sound of distant crickets filled the air. Officer Daniel Carter leaned against his patrol car, sipping lukewarm coffee from a paper cup, trying to stay awake during another long shift. He thought it would be just another ordinary night. But little did he know, this was the night that would change his life forever. As Daniel adjusted his belt and looked around, he noticed something unusual on the edge of the parking lot near the old diner. At first it seemed like a shadow moving, but when his headlights caught it, he froze. A large, thin German shepherd was slowly walking toward him, ribs clearly showing beneath its fur. Its eyes, tired, hungry, and full of quiet desperation, met his. The dog wasn't aggressive. It wasn't barking. Instead, it took a few hesitant steps closer and then sat down in front of him. The dog tilted its head, ears low, as if it were begging. And then Daniel noticed something that struck him like lightning. Its gaze wasn't on him, but on the sandwich sitting on the hood of his car. The dog was starving. For a police officer who had seen so many heartbreaking things in his career, this sight felt different. He wasn't looking at just another stray animal. He was looking at a soul on the edge of giving up. He broke the silence. "Hey there, buddy. You hungry?" The dog didn't bark, didn't growl. It just stared at the sandwich with pleading eyes, drool gathering on the corner of its mouth. And at that very moment, Daniel felt something stir deep inside him. But here's where it gets strange. What happened after he broke that sandwich in half would leave even him questioning if this meeting was a coincidence or fate itself. Daniel slowly picked up the sandwich. He tore a piece of it and held it out. The German shepherd, cautious but desperate, crept closer. For a moment, Daniel thought the dog might run away, but hunger was stronger than fear. With a shaky step forward, the shepherd gently took the bread and meat from his hand, chewing slowly as if it had been years since its last real meal. Something in Daniel's chest tightened. He couldn't look away from the animal's eyes. There was no mistaking it. This wasn't just a hungry dog. There was a story behind those eyes, a painful story waiting to be told. As the dog ate the second half of the sandwich, Daniel knelt down. He reached his hand out slowly, not sure if the shepherd would allow it. To his surprise, the dog didn't back away. Instead, it let out a soft whine, and then pressed its head gently against his hand. It wasn't asking for food anymore. It was asking for help, and Daniel, though he didn't know why, whispered back, "I got you, buddy. I'm not leaving you like this." But little did Daniel know, by making that promise, he was stepping into something far bigger than himself. And soon he'd find out this shepherd wasn't just another stray. It was carrying a secret that would shock an entire town. Daniel opened the backseat door of his patrol car, expecting the shepherd to hesitate. But to his surprise, the dog climbed in as if it had been waiting for this moment its whole life. The sight was almost surreal. A starving stray, trusting a man in uniform without hesitation. As he drove through the empty streets, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was strange. He had seen plenty of strays in his years of patrolling, but none of them behaved like this. Usually they ran away, they barked, they bit. But this shepherd, it was calm, almost too calm, like it knew it was finally safe. Daniel glanced in the rearview mirror. The dog was lying down now, head resting on the seat, eyes half closed in exhaustion. Its breathing was uneven, and for a moment Daniel worried it might not make it through the night. That thought hit him harder than he expected. He wasn't sure why, but he already felt connected to this animal. When he pulled up outside the small veterinary clinic on the edge of town, the lights were off. Of course, they were closed at this hour. Daniel looked back at the shepherd. "Guess it's just you and me tonight, buddy." He decided to take the dog to his own home. On the way, he stopped at a 24-hour grocery store with his badge still. On his chest, he carried a basket of dog food, bottled water, and a cheap blanket to the counter. The cashier raised an eyebrow. "Late night shopping, officer?" Daniel gave a tired smile. "Rescue mission." Back at his small apartment, He laid the blanket in a corner of the living room and gently guided the shepherd onto it. The dog collapsed instantly, its body trembling with both relief and weakness. Daniel opened a can of food, and though the shepherd devoured it quickly, it was careful, not greedy, not wild. Almost as if it had once known what it meant to be cared for, that thought haunted Daniel. And here's where it gets even stranger. When Daniel leaned down to remove a piece of dirt from the shepherd's collarless neck, he noticed something. A small scar, faint but clear, just below the ear. It wasn't random, it looked deliberate, almost like a mark. Daniel sat back, staring at the dog. "Who are you? And what happened to you?" he whispered. For the rest of the night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The German shepherd lay curled up on the blanket, occasionally twitching in its sleep, whimpering softly as if haunted by nightmares. Daniel found himself watching, protecting. He didn't know why, but something deep inside told him this dog had entered his life for a reason, and he couldn't shake the feeling that saving it tonight was only the beginning. Because what Daniel didn't know was that this shepherd wasn't just running from hunger. It was running from something much darker, and soon the truth would come knocking on his door. The next morning, Daniel woke to a sound he hadn't heard in years, soft breathing beside his bed. He turned, expecting to see nothing, but there, it was the German shepherd, curled up on the floor like it had always belonged there. Its head lifted the moment his alarm buzzed, ears perking, eyes filled with a strange awareness. Daniel sat up slowly. "Morning, buddy," he whispered. The dog gave a low, content rumble in its chest. Not quite a bark, not quite a growl, more like a thank you. But as sunlight streamed through the blinds, Daniel noticed something that unsettled him. The dog's fur, though matted and dirty, bore faint impressions of something unnatural, thin lines running down its back, almost like scars from restraints. His stomach tightened. What kind of life had this shepherd endured before finding him? He shook his head. One step at a time, first food, then answers. Daniel poured some kibble into a bowl and set it down. The shepherd approached cautiously, sniffing, then eating slowly, almost politely. It wasn't wild, it wasn't reckless. And again, that thought crept into Daniel's mind. This wasn't the behavior of an ordinary stray. As he watched, his phone buzzed. It was dispatch. "Carter, you've got the early patrol today. You ready?" He sighed, glancing at the dog. "Yeah, I'll be there." But as he turned to grab his jacket, the shepherd did something startling. It blocked the door, standing firm, chest out, eyes fixed on him. Daniel frowned. "Hey, come on, I'll be back." The shepherd didn't move. Its gaze burned with something urgent, almost as if it were trying to warn him. Daniel chuckled nervously. "You don't want me to leave, huh?" The dog's tail lowered. It didn't wag. It didn't bark. Just stood there, guarding him. For a brief second, Daniel wondered if this animal knew something he didn't. And here's the strange part. Later that morning, while Daniel was out on patrol, something would happen that made him question if the shepherd's warning had been more than just instinct. The streets of Riverside were calm as always. Daniel drove through familiar neighborhoods, his mind drifting back to the dog in his apartment. He couldn't shake the image of those scars, or the way it had stared at him before he left. Halfway through his route, he spotted a man standing suspiciously near the edge of an alley. Something about him felt off. Shifty eyes, nervous posture, a large duffel bag at his feet. Daniel parked and approached. "Morning," he called out. "Everything okay here?" The man froze, then forced a smile. "Yeah, officer. Just waiting for a ride." But Daniel's instincts were sharp. His eyes fell on the bag. It was slightly unzipped, revealing a glint of metal inside. He tensed. "Mind if I take a look?" Before he could step closer, the man grabbed the bag and bolted. Daniel chased him, adrenaline spiking. The man darted through the alley, but Daniel was faster. He tackled him near a dumpster, yanking the bag away. Inside, to his shock, were several stolen weapons, handguns, a sawed-off shotgun, and a set of knives. As backup arrived and the man was cuffed, Daniel couldn't shake the timing of it all. What were the chances he'd stumble on something like this just hours after the shepherd had blocked him at the door, almost as if it knew he'd be in danger? Coincidence? Or was the dog more than it seemed? Daniel didn't believe in signs, but that day he started to wonder. That night, back at his apartment, Daniel sat across from the shepherd. "You knew, didn't you?" he whispered. "You tried to stop me." The shepherd tilted its head, ears twitching. For a moment, Daniel swore those eyes held an intelligence too deep to ignore. The truth was out there. And now, Daniel was determined to find it. The next day, Daniel took the shepherd to the veterinary clinic as soon as it opened. Dr. Alvarez, a kind middle-aged woman who had treated countless strays, greeted him with a puzzled smile. "Officer Carter, didn't expect to see. You here with the dog?" Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, it's a long story." The shepherd followed him inside calmly, tail low but steady. Dr. Alvarez examined the animal carefully, checking its ribs, paws, and teeth. Her face grew serious as she noted the scars along its back and neck. "These aren't from fights," she murmured. "They look like restraints, maybe cages, possibly worse." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Like abuse?" Dr. Alvarez nodded slowly. "Yes, and there's something else." She gently lifted the shepherd's ear, exposing the faint scar Daniel had noticed earlier. "This isn't random, this is a surgical mark. Someone implanted a microchip here at some point." Daniel leaned closer. "Can you scan it?" The vet grabbed her scanner and passed it over the area. A faint beep echoed. She frowned. "That's odd. There's no registered information. It's like the data was wiped or never uploaded." Daniel felt a chill run through him. Why would someone erase a dog's chip? Dr. Alvarez hesitated. "I can't say for sure, but sometimes it happens with animals used for illegal purposes. Fighting rings, smuggling, or worse, experiments." The word experiment struck Daniel like a hammer. He looked at the shepherd, who stared back at him with calm, trusting eyes, as if it understood every word. And here's where things take a darker turn, because Daniel was about to discover that someone out there didn't just lose this dog. Someone wanted it gone. That night, as Daniel returned home with the shepherd, he noticed something unusual. His front door, locked that morning, was slightly ajar. He froze, hand instinctively reaching for his holstered gun. Quietly, he pushed the door open. The apartment was dark, but something felt wrong. He stepped inside, scanning the room. Nothing looked stolen, nothing out of place. But then, on the kitchen counter, he saw it. A single folded piece of paper. His heart pounded as he unfolded it. The message was short, written in jagged letters. "Stay away from the dog. This is your only warning." Daniel's stomach dropped. He turned toward the shepherd, who stood stiffly at the door, ears sharp, body tense. It was as if the dog knew exactly what that note meant. Someone was watching them, and they weren't just after Daniel. They were after the shepherd. But here's the real question. What secret could a starving, stray German shepherd possibly hold? That would make dangerous people break into a cop's home just to deliver a threat. Daniel was about to find out. And the truth would be far darker than anything he imagined. The note sat heavy in Daniel's hand. Its jagged letters burned into his mind. "Stay away from the dog. This is your only warning." He wasn't a stranger to threats. Being a cop meant people hated you. But this was different. This wasn't about him, it was about the shepherd. He stared at the dog, now lying near the couch, its head resting on its paws, watching him silently. Those tired, intelligent eyes seemed to ask him the same question, echoing in his own mind. What am I caught up in? Daniel grabbed his phone and called the station. "Yeah, it's Carter. Listen, I think someone broke into my apartment tonight. No, nothing stolen, just a note threatening me about a dog." There was a pause. Then his sergeant chuckled. "Carter, you're telling me you got a death threat over a mutt?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "It's not a joke." "Then bring the dog to animal control. Problem solved." Daniel stared at the shepherd, who perked its ears as if understanding. His chest tightened. He couldn't do that. He couldn't just hand it over. "No, I'll take care of it." He hung up. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made him tense. At one point, Headlights swept across his apartment, lingering a little too long before pulling away. The shepherd growled low in its throat, rising to stand at the window. Its body stiffened, tail straight like a soldier sensing an enemy. Daniel whispered, "You see it too, don't you?" The shepherd didn't bark, didn't move, just stared into the dark street as if it knew eyes were staring back. And here's where it gets chilling, because Daniel wasn't paranoid. The people who left that note weren't finished with him. In fact, this was just the beginning of something much bigger, something dangerous enough to make Daniel wonder if saving the dog had been a mistake or the best decision of his life. The next morning, Daniel made a decision. He drove to the precinct with the shepherd in the back seat. His colleagues raised eyebrows as he walked through the lobby, with a large German shepherd trotting beside him. "New canine partner?" one officer joked. Daniel forced a smile. Something like that. But in truth, he was desperate for answers. He asked the records officer to run a deeper scan on the shepherd's microchip, hoping something would come up. Hours later, the officer returned, frowning. "This is odd. The ID number is valid, but the registry's been deleted. Almost like someone wiped the database completely. But I did find one thing." He slid a paper across the desk. A code. A single string of letters and numbers. "What does it mean?" Daniel asked. The officer shrugged. "Could be anything, but I've seen something like this before. Government contract animals, dogs trained for special purposes, military, research, labs, experimental units, stuff that never makes it into the public system." Daniel's blood ran cold. He glanced back at the shepherd sitting calmly by his desk, watching. Could it be true? Was this starving dog once part of something darker, something hidden? That night, as Daniel drove home, his gut told him he was being followed. A black SUV had trailed him for several blocks, headlights dimmed. He took a sharp turn into a side street, then another, then pulled into an alley. The SUV passed by slowly. Windows tinted. Daniel's grip tightened on the steering wheel. They weren't just watching anymore. They were closing in. When he got home, he locked every door and window, but his heart pounded not from fear for himself, but for the shepherd. Because now it was clear this dog wasn't just a stray. It was carrying a past someone was willing to kill to bury. And Daniel, whether he liked it or not, was caught in the middle. That night, the shepherd curled up beside his bed again. And Daniel whispered into the dark, "I don't know what they did to you, but I promise I'll protect you, no matter what it costs me." He didn't know then how heavy that promise would become. The sound of shattering glass jolted Daniel, awake. His heart slammed against his ribs as he reached for his gun. The shepherd was already up, growling deep, ears back, body tense. Another crash, this time from the kitchen. Daniel moved quickly, gun raised, while the shepherd darted ahead like a shadow, muscles coiled. He flicked on the light just in time to see two masked figures forcing their way through the back door, crowbars in hand. "Police, freeze!" Daniel shouted. The intruders didn't hesitate, they charged. The shepherd lunged with a ferocity Daniel had never seen. It struck the first man, clamping down on his arm, dragging him to the floor with terrifying strength. The second swung the crowbar, but Daniel fired warning shot into the wall. "Drop it!" The man froze, then scrambled back through the broken door, dragging his injured partner with him. Tires screeched outside as the SUV sped away. The shepherd stood panting, blood dripping from its muzzle, not its own, but the attacker's. Daniel lowered his gun, staring at the dog in shock. You saved me." The shepherd padded over, pressing its head against his leg, whimpering softly. It wasn't wild, it wasn't savage. It had attacked with precision, like it had done it before. After the police filed the report, Daniel sat alone at his kitchen table, staring at the broken glass. The official story was simple. Two intruders, likely burglars, but Daniel knew better. They weren't here for his TV or wallet, they were here for the dog. He looked at the shepherd lying by the door, alert, guarding him even now. "What are you, boy?" he whispered. "What did they make you into?" His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hesitant, he answered. A distorted voice spoke. "You don't know what you've taken, Officer Carter. That dog is not yours. Return it, or you'll regret it." Click. The line went dead. Daniel's blood turned cold. And here's the twist, because that call wasn't just a threat, it was confirmation. The people after the shepherd weren't common criminals. They were organized, powerful, and they weren't going to stop until they got it back. That night, Daniel packed a bag. He couldn't stay here, not with the shepherd in danger. He loaded food, water, and supplies into his car. As he clipped a makeshift leash onto the shepherd's collar, he whispered, "We're leaving, buddy. Wherever this road takes us, we'll face it together." The dog looked up at him, eyes steady, as if saying, "I trust you." Daniel started the engine. The night swallowed them as they drove away, leaving the shattered glass and the warning note behind. But as they disappeared into the darkness, one thing was clear. This wasn't just about a starving dog anymore. This was war. And what Daniel didn't know yet was that the deeper he went, the more terrifying the truth would become. Because this shepherd wasn't just running from a past. It was carrying a secret powerful enough to change everything. The highway stretched endlessly under a blanket of stars. Daniel's old patrol SUV hummed steadily as he drove deeper into the night, the German shepherd sitting tall in the passenger seat like a silent guardian. Its head turned occasionally toward the windows, scanning the passing darkness with sharp, alert eyes. Daniel tightened his grip on the wheel. He had no plan, no destination, only the instinct that staying in Riverside meant death for both of them. "Where do we go, buddy?" he whispered. The shepherd didn't move, but its steady gaze was enough to calm him. For a moment, Daniel felt he wasn't driving alone. He felt like he had a partner. Hours later, as dawn painted the horizon pink, Daniel pulled into a deserted gas station. He filled the tank, bought some food, and poured water into a plastic bowl for the shepherd. As the dog drank, Daniel noticed something strange. The gas station TV, mounted above the counter, was playing the morning news. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, "Break-in at Riverside officer's home, no suspects." And then he saw it. Grainy footage of him, standing outside his apartment last night speaking to reporters after the incident. They had blurred the shepherd's face, but only partly. Anyone watching closely could still tell what kind of dog it was. Daniel's stomach dropped. His cover was gone. He quickly ushered the shepherd back into the car, heart racing. "They know we're out here," he muttered. Back on the road, he couldn't shake the feeling of eyes following him. Every car behind him looked suspicious. Every set of headlights lingered too long. Then around midday, he noticed something. The shepherd's ears pricked suddenly. It sat up, alert, staring at the tree line along the highway. Its body stiffened, hackles rising. "What is it?" Daniel asked, slowing down. The shepherd let out a low growl, staring at a black van partially hidden among the trees. And as if on cue, the van roared to life, pulling onto the road behind them. Daniel's pulse spiked. He slammed the gas pedal. The SUV lurched forward, tires screeching. The van accelerated too, closing the distance. The shepherd barked sharply, turning toward Daniel as if urging him faster. Shots rang out. Bullets shattered the rear window. Daniel swerved, adrenaline flooding his veins. He veered off the main road and into a dirt path that cut through the forest. The SUV jolted violently as branches whipped against the sides. The van followed. For miles they weaved through trees until finally, by some miracle, Daniel spotted an old barn at the end of the path. He skidded to a stop, jumped out and rushed inside with the shepherd. The barn was abandoned, filled with dust and broken crates. They hid in the shadows as the van's engine roared past, missing the turn. Daniel collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. The shepherd sat beside him, calm despite the chaos. "You saved us again," Daniel whispered. He reached out, stroking its fur, his hand brushing against the faint scar by its ear. And then, something unexpected happened. As Daniel pressed lightly on the scar, the shepherd flinched, but not from pain. Instead, its eyes widened, and for the first time it whined loudly, pawing at the spot. Daniel froze. "What is it?" He pressed, again more carefully, and then he felt it. Something tiny, hard, still embedded beneath the skin. Not just a scar. A device. And here's the chilling twist. Daniel wasn't just protecting a stray. He was protecting a living secret. A dog carrying something inside it that people were willing to kill for. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep in the barn. His mind spun with questions. Why was the microchip erased? Why implant something more? And what exactly was inside this dog that made powerful people hunt it across state lines? The shepherd curled up beside him, eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight, as if waiting for the truth to finally come out. Morning sunlight streamed through the barn's cracks as Daniel stirred awake. The shepherd was already up, standing at the door, tail stiff, ears sharp. It was alert again, too alert. Daniel peered outside cautiously. The forest was still, but in the distance, a lone figure walked slowly toward the barn. A woman, mid-30s, wearing a long coat and carrying a worn leather bag. Daniel raised his gun instinctively. "Stay back!" he shouted. The woman stopped, hands raised. Her voice was calm, steady. "I'm not here to hurt you, I'm here for the dog." The shepherd barked, low and warning, placing itself between her and Daniel. Daniel narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" She stepped closer, carefully. "My name is Dr. Evelyn Ross. I used to work at the facility where that dog came from." Daniel's stomach dropped. "Facility?" She nodded. "I know what they told you, that it's just a stray, but that's not true. That dog, it was part of a classified program, and if you don't let me help, both of you are going to die." Daniel didn't lower his gun. "Why should I believe you?" Evelyn reached slowly into her bag and pulled out a file, tossing it onto the barn floor. Pages spilled out, documents, photos, medical charts. Daniel crouched and scanned them. His blood ran cold. Images of German shepherds in sterile cages. Charts showing injections, behavioral tests, scar diagrams. And on one page, an image of this exact shepherd labeled Subject 17. Daniel looked up sharply. Evelyn's face was pale, guilt written in every line. "I was one of the scientists. We were ordered to push limits, enhance instincts, increase intelligence. They called it Project Sentinel. But it was cruel. They treated them like tools, not living beings. And when the program started failing, they erased everything. Destroyed the records, terminated the animals." Her voice cracked. "All except one." Daniel's gaze shifted to the shepherd, standing tall, eyes locked on Evelyn. The dog's body trembled faintly, as if recognizing her scent, her voice, her presence. "You knew him," Daniel said slowly. Evelyn nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, he wasn't just Subject 17. We called him Rex, and he was the smartest, bravest one of them all." The weight of her words hit Daniel like a punch. This wasn't just a stray dog. This was Rex, survivor of something monstrous. And now the people who created him wanted him erased. But here's where it gets even more gripping, because Evelyn's next words revealed a truth darker than anything Daniel had imagined. "They're not just after Rex," she whispered. "They're after anyone who knows he's still alive, which means you, Officer Carter, are already on their list." The barn seemed to shrink around him. Daniel glanced at Rex, then at Evelyn. His heart pounded with the weight of choice. Could he trust this woman? Or was she just another piece of the trap? The shepherd made the decision for him. Rex moved forward slowly, sniffed Evelyn's hand, and didn't growl, didn't bark. Instead, for the first time, he allowed someone other than Daniel close. Daniel lowered his gun, but his voice stayed sharp. "If you're telling the truth, then you help me protect him. Because I'm not giving him up. Not to them. Not to anyone." Evelyn nodded, relief flooding her face. "Then we move fast, because they'll be coming again, and next time they won't miss." And that's where the story sharpens. Daniel is no longer alone. With Evelyn's knowledge and Rex's hidden strength, the fight is only beginning. But the darker the truth gets, the more dangerous the road ahead becomes. The barn smelled of dust and old hay, but to Daniel, it felt more like a cage. He sat with his back against the wall, his gun resting on his lap, Evelyn across from him. Rex lay between them, ears twitching at every sound outside. Project Sentinel, Daniel repeated, his voice low. That's what they called it. Evelyn nodded grimly. The government wanted a new breed of service dogs, not just ordinary canine units, something more. Dogs that could think faster, track better, even anticipate threats. They were trained. With methods I still can't forgive myself for. Daniel frowned. Methods? Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. Isolation, shock conditioning, experimental injections. They altered their brain chemistry. Some dogs broke down, some turned violent. But Rex... She glanced at the shepherd, her voice softening. He adapted. Smarter than the others. Too smart. That's why they feared him. Daniel felt a knot form in his chest. He looked at Rex, lying quietly but watching every word. Not just an animal. Someone who had survived cruelty most humans couldn't endure. Daniel realized then that Rex wasn't just a victim. He was a living piece of evidence. Evidence that people in power would burn cities to erase. Before Daniel could respond, Rex suddenly jumped to his feet, ears stiff, tail rigid. A low growl rumbled from his chest. Evelyn stiffened. "They've found us." Daniel sprang up, peering. Through the cracks of the barn wall, dust clouds rose on the dirt road in the distance, 3 black SUVs speeding toward them. "Move!" Daniel shouted. They bolted out the back door, Rex bounding ahead like a bullet. The trio ran through the tall grass and into the forest. Branches whipped against their faces, the roar of engines growing louder behind them. Gunfire cracked. Bullets shredded the bark of trees as Daniel pulled Evelyn behind cover. "Keep running," he ordered. Rex leapt forward, agile and powerful. Weaving through the trees, he barked sharply. A signal almost like he was directing them where to go. Daniel followed his lead, his lungs burning. Finally, they stumbled into a clearing where a river cut across the land. The current rushed violently, but there was no choice. Evelyn gasped. "We can't cross that. It's too strong." Daniel looked at the SUVs crashing through the tree line behind them. "We don't have a choice." He grabbed Evelyn's hand, and together they plunged into the water. Rex leapt in beside them, paddling fiercely. The current tore at them, dragging them downstream, but Rex swam ahead, looking back as if urging them forward. Daniel's muscles screamed as he fought to keep his head above water, Evelyn clinging desperately to him. Finally, after what felt like hours, they washed up on the far bank, coughing and shivering. Rex shook himself off and immediately stood, guard, scanning the tree line. Daniel collapsed, breathing hard. "We can't keep running like this. They'll track us forever." Evelyn nodded, her face pale. "Not unless we make them stop." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "There's one place, an old safe house where we kept files. It has proof of everything they did. If we can get there, we might have a way to fight back." Daniel glanced at Rex, who sat watching them, calm and steady. The decision was already made, but what none of them knew was that by heading toward the safe house, they weren't just walking into safety. They were walking straight into betrayal. Night had fallen by the time they reached the outskirts of a small abandoned town. Buildings sat empty, windows broken, the air heavy with silence. Evelyn guided them through the cracked streets until they stopped before a small brick building with boarded-up windows. "This is it," she whispered. Daniel entered cautiously, flashlight sweeping the dusty interior. Old furniture lay broken, papers scattered across the floor. Evelyn rushed to a hidden panel near the back wall and pried it open, revealing a metal lockbox. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside were stacks of files, photographs, and hard drives. She spread them across a table. This is everything," she said breathlessly. "Proof of Project Sentinel. Test logs, orders, disposal records. If we can get this into the right hands, they'll have no choice but to shut it down." Daniel skimmed a document, his stomach twisting. Lines of text described chemical dosages, stress trials, termination protocols. And next to one section was a photo. Rex, younger, thinner, chained to a steel cage. His blood boiled. They did this to him. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Yes, and worse, but he survived. That's why they want him gone. If people find out what they created, it destroys them. Daniel looked at Rex, who stood tall beside him, as if sensing the weight of the files on the table. Rex wasn't just a survivor. He was proof of crimes buried in shadows, and now Daniel held the key to exposing it all. But before they could act, Rex growled. Low, sharp, warning. Daniel froze. He turned toward the door. Footsteps, dozens of them. The safe house. Tada burst open. Armed men in black tactical gear stormed inside, rifles raised. Daniel dove for cover, firing a shot. Evelyn screamed, clutching the files. Get them! A voice barked. The fight erupted. Bullets shredded the air as Daniel fired back, Rex leaping with terrifying precision at one attacker, dragging him down. Evelyn ducked behind the table, shoving files into her bag. Then through the chaos, Daniel saw something that froze his blood. One of the soldiers wasn't aiming at him. Wasn't aiming at Evelyn. He was aiming at Rex. No, Daniel roared, tackling the man just as he pulled the trigger. The shot went wide, grazing Rex's side. The shepherd yelped in pain but kept fighting, teeth sinking into another attacker's. Daniel's fury ignited. He fought harder, faster, until finally the gunfire stopped. The surviving soldiers retreated, dragging their wounded out. Silence fell. Daniel rushed to Rex's side. Blood stained his fur, but the wound wasn't deep. Still, the sight twisted Daniel's chest. He pressed his forehead to the shepherd's. I've got you, buddy. You're not going anywhere. Rex licked his hand weakly, eyes steady, but the relief didn't last. As Daniel turned, he saw Evelyn standing rigid, her bag of files clutched tightly, and in her other hand, a phone. The screen glowed. She had just sent a message. Daniel's eyes narrowed. What did you do? Evelyn's face was pale, conflicted. I called them. Daniel's chest tightened. You what? Tears streamed down her face. I didn't want to. But you don't understand. If they catch me, if they find out I helped you, they'll kill my family. I had no choice. Rex growled, stepping between them, teeth bared. Daniel felt his world tilt. Betrayal cut deeper than the bullets. The one person he thought could help them had just painted a target on their backs again. The silence in the safe house was thick enough to choke on. Dust floated in the beam of Daniel's flashlight, but all he could see was Evelyn's trembling hands clutching the phone. You called them, Daniel whispered, his voice low and dangerous. Evelyn's lips quivered. Daniel, please, you don't understand. They promised, they swore if I helped they'd leave my family alone. Daniel's grip tightened around his gun. His heart was a storm, torn between fury and pity. You sold us out. You put Rex in their sights. After everything we've been through. Evelyn sobbed, shoulders shaking. I didn't want to, I never wanted to, but they have my son, my little boy, Daniel. They've had him this whole time. If I don't cooperate, they'll kill him. The viewers realize Evelyn isn't just a traitor. She's a mother caught in a trap. Now her betrayal feels both monstrous and heartbreakingly human. Daniel staggered back, processing the words. Rex's growl softened slightly, confusion flickering in his amber eyes as if he too sensed the pain behind her confession. Your son, Daniel muttered, his anger cracking. Yes, Evelyn whispered. Please believe me. If I don't deliver Rex, they'll end his life. I didn't know what else to do. The weight of her words hung heavy. Daniel clenched his fists. He had seen men break under fear, but this was different. A mother chained by love. Before Daniel could respond, the building shuddered. Headlights cut through the boarded windows. Dozens of vehicles pulled up outside. The sound of boots, radios crackling, men shouting orders. They're here, Evelyn whispered. Daniel snapped into motion. Then we move, now! He grabbed the files Evelyn had stuffed into her bag and slung it over his shoulder. You want your son back? Then you stay with us. We're not handing Rex over. We're taking this whole operation down. Evelyn's eyes widened, torn between terror and hope. But how? Daniel looked at Rex, the shepherd standing tall despite his wound, eyes blazing like fire. With him, He's not just evidence, he's our weapon. They bolted out the back, slipping into the night as floodlights swept across the safe house. Shouts erupted as soldiers realized their prey had slipped away. Bullets whizzed through the air, smashing into walls, dirt spraying around their feet. Daniel fired back, leading Evelyn and Rex into the maze of crumbling alleys. Every corner felt like a death trap, every shadow a waiting gun. But Rex was the compass, ears flicking, nose twitching, leading them left, then right, always staying one step ahead. Finally, they ducked into an abandoned school building, collapsing against the cold walls. Evelyn panted, tears streaking her cheeks. "I don't know how long we can keep this up." Daniel set his jaw. "As long as it takes." He leaned against the wall, heart pounding. They were outnumbered, hunted, betrayed. But deep inside, a fire burned. He wouldn't let Evelyn's son die. He wouldn't let Rex's suffering be erased. Just when viewers think things can't get worse, Daniel makes a vow that shifts the story. This isn't just about survival anymore, it's about justice. A dangerous, impossible mission is being born in his mind. The abandoned school smelled of mildew and broken dreams. Old desks lay scattered, chalk still faint on cracked blackboards. Rex paced silently, his paws leaving dusty prints as if marking Sunhereditary. Daniel spread the stolen files across a desk. Photographs, documents, maps, all pieces of a puzzle too dark to comprehend in one sitting. Evelyn hovered nearby, guilt carved into her face. "You should have left me behind, I ruined everything." Daniel looked up sharply. "You're still here, aren't you? That means there's a part of you that wants to fight back." Her lips trembled. "If we don't give them Rex, they'll never let us go. They'll come harder, faster. My son," Daniel cut her off, slamming his fist onto the desk. "Then we take the fight to them." His voice echoed through the empty school. Evelyn froze, staring at him. Rex lifted his head, ears perking, as if he understood the declaration. "They want Rex silenced," Daniel continued, his eyes blazing. "They want their crimes buried, fine. Then we put it all in the open, we leak the files, we expose every rotten thing they've done, and we don't stop until your son, and every dog they broke, is free." Evelyn covered her mouth, tears falling again. But this time there was something else in her eyes. Hope. Before they could speak further, Rex growled again, low. "Warning." Daniel's hand flew to his gun. "They followed us." Shadows moved outside the broken windows, the crunch of boots on gravel. Voices murmuring into radios. "They're sweeping the town," Evelyn whispered. Daniel grabbed her hand and motioned to Rex. "Basement, now." They crept down a stairwell into the dark, damp basement. Daniel killed the flashlight, plunging them into pitch black. Above, the soldiers' boots echoed as they entered the school. The air grew heavy, every second stretched thin. Daniel's finger hovered over his trigger. Evelyn's breath hitched quietly. Rex stood utterly still, a silent guardian in the dark. Then a voice thundered above, familiar, chilling. "Daniel!" Daniel's blood ran cold. He knew that voice. Captain Marcus. Hale, his former commanding officer. Hale wasn't just any pursuer. He was the man who trained Daniel, the one he once trusted with his life. Now he was leading the hunt. "Come out, Daniel." Hale's voice carried like a storm. "You've got something that doesn't belong to you. Hand over the dog and maybe I'll let you walk away." Daniel's jaw clenched. He whispered to Evelyn, "Stay quiet." Upstairs, Hale continued, "You're not thinking straight, son. You know what Rex is, a mistake, a liability. He doesn't belong in this world. Hand him over and this ends tonight." Evelyn gripped Daniel's arm, panic in her eyes. Daniel leaned close, whispering fiercely, "Listen to me, he's not a mistake. He's the proof we need, and I'm not giving him up. Not to Hale, not to anyone." Rex pressed against Daniel's leg, his warm body steadying him, reminding him why they were fighting. The soldiers moved, their footsteps growing closer. Daniel realized they couldn't stay hidden forever. It was only a matter of time before the basement was breached. His mind raced. He had fought wars, survived ambushes, faced death before. But this was different. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Rex. about Evelyn's son, about truth itself. He leaned toward Evelyn. "When I move, stay close. Don't look back." Her breath shook. "Where are we going?" Daniel's eyes narrowed, determination burning. "Out. Through them if we have to." And as he tightened his grip on the gun, Rex crouched low, muscles coiled, ready to strike. The viewers are left with the image of Daniel, Rex, and Evelyn in the dark, surrounded by enemies led by a man Daniel once trusted. The question lingers, can loyalty survive when brotherhood turns into betrayal? The basement walls pressed in like a tomb. Dust rained from the ceiling with every heavy step above. Evelyn clutched Daniel's arm, her nails digging in. Rex crouched low, silent, his golden eyes glowing faintly in the dark like embers waiting for a spark. Above them, Captain Hale's voice rang through the ruined school. "Daniel, I know you're listening." His tone was calm, too calm. "You think you're fighting for something noble, but all you're doing is clinging to a broken animal and a pile of lies. Give me the shepherd and I'll make this easy for you." Daniel's jaw clenched. He had once respected Hale, once called him a mentor. Now the man sounded like a wolf circling the den, waiting to pounce. Evelyn whispered, "He'll find us." "We can't just sit here." Daniel studied Rex. The dog's ears twitched with every sound, his nose working, muscles trembling with readiness. He wasn't afraid. He was calculating. Daniel nodded. "You're right. We don't wait. We move." Instead of hiding, Daniel decides to strike first. Viewers now wonder, how can 3 against an army even hope to survive? He pulled Evelyn close. "When I move, follow Rex. He'll get us through. Don't question him." Her eyes widened. "You're putting our lives in a dog's paws?" Daniel's expression hardened. "Not a dog, Rex." The basement door above creaked. Flashlight beams pierced the dark. Daniel whispered sharply, "Now." Rex launched forward with terrifying speed, bounding. Up the stairs before the first soldier even registered movement. A snarl ripped through the air, followed by a scream as Rex hit his target with bone-crushing force. Daniel charged after him, gun blazing. The stairwell exploded into chaos, shouts, gunfire, the acrid bite of gunpowder. Evelyn stumbled behind. Clutching the files, Rex moved like liquid fury, weaving between soldiers, dragging one down, dodging a buttstock swing, snapping jaws locking onto another's arm. He wasn't fighting like an animal. He was fighting like he understood the battlefield. Daniel fired clean, precise shots, every squeeze of the trigger keeping Rex clear. Together, man and shepherd became a storm of violence, each protecting the other without words. "Fall back," a soldier shouted, dragging his bleeding comrade. The hallway filled with retreating boots. Silence rushed in like a wave after a storm. Daniel's chest heaved, sweat dripping down his brow. Evelyn clung to the wall, her face pale. Rex padded back to Daniel's side, blood on his muzzle but fire still in his eyes. Daniel knelt, gripping his fur. "Good boy. You saved us." Rex pressed his head into Daniel's chest, a quiet gesture of trust. In this moment of raw connection, viewers realize Rex isn't just surviving. He's evolving into something more, something almost human. But their relief shattered in seconds. A slow clap echoed down the hall. Captain Hale emerged from the shadows, calm as ever, his eyes locked on Daniel. Behind him, more soldiers spread out, weapons raised. "Well done," Hale said smoothly. "You've taught the mutt tricks I didn't think possible." "Shame it won't matter." Daniel raised his gun. "Stay back, Hale," Hale smirked. "Or, what? You'll kill me. Then what? You think the truth will set you free? You think anyone out there cares about some files? About some broken dog?" Daniel's hand trembled with rage. Evelyn whispered, "Daniel!" Hale's smirk widened. "You always were sentimental. That's why you'll lose." And with a snap of his fingers, floodlights ignited outside the school. Through broken windows, Daniel saw it. Dozens more. Soldiers circling like sharks. The trap had fully sprung. The light outside bled into the shattered school, painting the walls in harsh white. Hale stood tall, framed by soldiers. every gun barrel glinting like teeth in the dark. "Drop your weapon, Daniel," Hale ordered. "Hand me the dog. We can even forget about the files. Walk away. Live." Daniel's chest burned with fury. Walk away? Leave Rex? After everything? He tightened his grip. "You're asking me to betray the only one who never betrayed me. No deal." Rex growled, teeth bared. Evelyn's breath shook as she whispered, "We can't win this." Daniel glanced at her. "Maybe not, but we can fight. This is the impossible stand. The viewers are hooked by the sheer hopelessness of it. Can they really survive this trap?" Hale sighed as if disappointed. "So be it. Kill them all." The air erupted. Gunfire tore through the walls, wood splintering, glass exploding. Daniel dragged Evelyn behind an overturned desk, bullets shrieking past. Rex leapt like lightning, dodging fire, barking sharply as if commanding Daniel where to aim. Daniel shot back, forcing soldiers into cover. But they were drowning in firepower, pinned on all sides. "We won't last," Evelyn cried. Daniel's mind raced, adrenaline burning. And then Rex did something that froze him. The shepherd darted to a broken support beam, teeth sinking into a dangling rope. With a violent yank, he triggered a chain reaction. Wood groaned. The upper floor collapsed partially, debris raining down, crushing 2 soldiers under rubble. Evelyn's jaw dropped. "He planned that?" Daniel's heart pounded. "No. He knew." The battle raged. Rex moved not like prey but like a commander, circling, distracting, leading Daniel's fire. Every bark, every movement seemed purposeful, as if he was directing the fight. Daniel realized then, Rex wasn't just trained, he was thinking, anticipating, outmaneuvering. Hale's expression finally cracked. For the first time, the captain looked unsettled. "This isn't possible," Hale muttered. Daniel shouted over the gunfire. "You made him stronger than you ever imagined, Hale, and now he's turning it against you." Rex lunged, knocking a soldier flat, tearing the rifle from his hands. Daniel followed, firing precise shots to cover his advance. For a moment, a brief, impossible moment, they pushed the tide back. Soldiers fell. Hale barked orders, frustration seeping through his calm mask. But then Evelyn screamed. A soldier had slipped behind them, grabbing her by the throat, pistol pressed against her temple. "Drop it," he shouted, "or she dies." Daniel froze. Gun halfway raised, Rex growled low, muscles taut. Hale stepped forward, seizing the moment. "Here's how this ends, Daniel. Put down your weapon. Leash the dog. Hand them both over, or she's gone." The silence was suffocating. Evelyn's wide eyes begged for life. Daniel's heart slammed like a drum. Rex stood perfectly still, eyes locked on Daniel's face as if waiting for a signal. The impossible choice: save Evelyn by surrendering Rex, or risk losing everything. Viewers can't look away because they must know. What will Daniel choose? And what will Rex do next? The soldier's grip on Evelyn tightened, the pistol digging into her temple. Her eyes were wide, pleading silently with Daniel. Hale stood with a cruel calmness, his voice steady. "It's simple, Daniel. The woman. Lives if the dog dies. Put your weapon down, hand Rex over." Daniel's chest heaved. His gun felt like it weighed 100 pounds. He glanced at Evelyn, then at Rex. Rex's golden eyes met his, unflinching, steady. It wasn't just a dog stare, it was something deeper, almost human. Daniel's hands trembled. His instincts screamed to save Evelyn, but another part of him, something primal, knew Rex had already chosen his path. Daniel is torn between saving Evelyn and saving Rex. Viewers are pulled into the unbearable tension. What will he do? Daniel lowered his gun slightly. Evelyn shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, don't you dare surrender him." Her words shattered him. She wasn't begging for herself, she was begging for Rex. Hale chuckled darkly. "See? Even she knows the mutt is worth more than her life. But sentiment blinds you, Daniel. That's why you're standing there, cornered, with no way out." The soldier's finger twitched on the trigger. Evelyn whimpered. Daniel's heart thundered. He whispered almost to himself, "I won't lose either of you." Then, in a flash, everything happened at once. Rex moved, like lightning, like a shadow, tearing free of the earth. He lunged at the soldier holding Evelyn, his jaws clamping down on the man's arm before he could fire. The pistol went off. Boom! The shot ricocheted into the wall, missing Evelyn by inches. The soldier screamed, Rex dragging him down with terrifying force. Evelyn dropped free, gasping, scrambling away. Daniel didn't hesitate. He raised his weapon and fired. One shot, clean, precise. The soldier went still beneath Rex's weight. The room exploded with chaos. Hale roared, "Take them down!" Soldiers surged forward, rifles spitting fire. Daniel yanked Evelyn behind cover, bullets shredding desks and walls. Rex darted through, the hail of gunfire like a ghost, snapping jaws, dragging men down, forcing gaps in the enemy line. But it wasn't enough. For every soldier Rex felled, two more pushed forward. Daniel's magazine clicked empty. He cursed, fumbling to reload, sweat and dust blurring his vision. Evelyn clutched the files, her body shaking. "Daniel!" she cried. "We can't hold them!" He knew she was right. They were seconds away from being overwhelmed. Then Rex did something Daniel would never forget. The shepherd leapt onto an overturned desk, standing tall despite the blood staining his fur. And then he barked. Not just a bark, a deep, commanding roar that echoed through the shattered school like thunder. The soldiers froze. For a heartbeat, even Hale seemed rattled. And in that strange silence, Daniel felt it. Rex wasn't just warning them. He was leading, commanding. Daniel's voice cracked with awe. "He's giving orders." Rex lunged again, this time not at the soldiers, but at the old fire alarm lever on the wall. His teeth clamped, yanking it down. The building shrieked. With alarms, sprinklers burst, spraying water across the chaos. Darkness fell as the power grid tripped, plunging the school into red emergency light. Panic rippled through Hale's men. Their radios screeched static. Visibility dropped to near zero. "Hold formation!" Hale barked, but his voice carried strain. Daniel seized the moment. "Move, Evelyn, now!" They dashed through the confusion, Rex clearing the way with snarls. Hand lunges, forcing soldiers back. The hallway became a storm of water, red light and chaos. Bullets flew blind. Shouts echoed. And in that madness, Daniel, Evelyn and Rex slipped out into the night. They collapsed behind a rusted bus at the edge of town, soaked, gasping for breath. Evelyn clutched her chest, sobbing. You both saved me," she whispered. Daniel's hand trembled as he stroked Rex's soaked fur. "No, he saved all of us." Rex pressed against him, eyes still sharp, still burning. For the first time, Daniel and Evelyn both realize Rex isn't just surviving. He's making decisions, fighting battles, and leading like a soldier himself. What is he becoming? The night air was cold, their breaths fogging in the dark. Daniel scanned the horizon. No sign of soldiers, but he knew Hale wouldn't stop. Not after what just happened. Evelyn's voice shook. He's not just a dog, is he?" Daniel looked at Rex, who sat calmly despite the blood streaking. His fur, his chest heaving in steady rhythm. "No," Daniel whispered. "He's something more, and that terrifies Hale." Evelyn clutched the files tighter. These papers, they said they wanted dogs that could anticipate, calculate. But Rex, he's thinking, planning, leading. Daniel nodded grimly. Which means he's the biggest threat they've ever created. Viewers realize with Daniel, Rex isn't just evidence, he's the evolution of Project Sentinel, the very thing Hale will burn the world to destroy. They moved through the forest, using the darkness as cover. Every crack of a twig made Evelyn flinch. Every distant sound set Rex on alert. Hours later, they reached an abandoned cabin by a lake. Exhaustion forced them inside. Evelyn collapsed onto a chair, clutching her head. I can't take this anymore. I betrayed you once. I nearly got us killed. And now I don't even know if Rex is a dog or something else." Daniel crouched in front of her. "Listen to me. You didn't betray us. You were forced. And Rex? He's both dog and something more, but whatever he is, he chose to save you tonight. Remember that." Her tears fell silently. Rex padded over, resting his head gently on her lap. Evelyn gasped, stroking his soaked fur. For the first time, her sobs softened into silence. But peace didn't last. Daniel stepped outside, scanning the tree line. The lake shimmered under the moon, and there on the far shore a figure stood, Hale, watching. Even across the distance, Daniel felt the weight of his stare. Hale didn't move, didn't raise a weapon. He just stood there, a shadow under the moonlight, promising silently that this wasn't over. Daniel's stomach turned cold. He whispered, "He's letting us go." "But why?" Rex padded to Daniel's side, growling low, his eyes locked on the figure. Evelyn appeared in the doorway, voice trembling. Maybe he doesn't need to chase. Maybe he's already planned the next move." Daniel's grip on his weapon tightened. Hale was a predator, and predators didn't let prey go unless it served a purpose. Hale's silent presence leaves viewers unsettled. He's not defeated. He's planning something far worse, but what? The morning broke cold and grey, mist curling over the lake like a ghostly blanket. Daniel hadn't slept. He sat at the cabin's broken window, rifle in hand, eyes fixed on the far shore. But Hale was gone, or so it seemed. Inside, Evelyn stirred, clutching the files even in sleep. Rex lay at her feet, ears twitching at every sound. He hadn't closed his eyes all night. Daniel's voice was low. "You saw him too, didn't you?" Rex lifted his head, staring into the mist. His silence was answer enough. Hale may not be visible anymore, but his presence hangs heavy in every breath. The viewers feel the tension. The predator is still hunting. By noon, the cabin grew suffocating. Evelyn spread the files across the table, her hands trembling. "Daniel, listen to this. Phase 3, autonomous adaptation." Daniel frowned. "In plain English?" She swallowed. "It means dogs like Rex, and they weren't just trained. They were programmed to learn, to evolve. Every fight, every choice makes him smarter, more independent." Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at Rex, who was watching them both intently, as if he understood every word. Evelyn whispered, "They didn't create a soldier. They created a commander." Daniel felt his stomach drop. And Hale wants him back. Or dead. That evening, the trap closed. It started with silence. Too much silence. 2. The forest around the cabin, usually alive with birds and crickets, had gone still. Daniel's instincts screamed. He loaded his rifle. "Evelyn, get down!" A second later, the first shot rang out. The cabin window shattered. A bullet slammed into the wall inches from Evelyn's head. She screamed, dropping to the floor. Daniel returned fire blindly, but he knew they weren't here to fight fair. They were here to smoke them out. The smell hit them next. Acrid, burning. Daniel cursed. "They've lit the forest." Through the broken window, orange light flickered. Flames spread fast, curling up the trees, choking smoke pouring toward the cabin. Evelyn coughed violently. "They'll burn us alive." Rex was already moving, pacing back and forth, barking sharply at the door. His movements were purposeful, strategic. Daniel realized something. "He's mapping the exits." Evelyn gasped through the smoke, like a soldier would. The fire grew, crackling, spitting embers through shattered glass. Shadows moved in the tree line. Hale's men, rifles glinting in the firelight. Daniel's lungs burned. Evelyn's eyes watered. And then Rex made his move. He darted to the back wall, claws scraping wood. He barked, then rammed his body against a rotten section of the boards. Once, twice, the wood split. Daylight burst through. Daniel grabbed Evelyn's hand. "Go!" They stumbled into the forest, coughing, blinded by smoke. Behind them, the cabin collapsed in fire, but Hale's men were waiting. Gunfire erupted. Bullets tore into the ground at their feet. Evelyn tripped, Daniel pulling her back up. Rex lunged, a head snarling, forcing soldiers to scatter. But there were too many. They ran until their lungs screamed, but the sound of pursuit never faded. Dogs barking, boots pounding, Hale's voice cutting through the smoke like a knife. "Run, if you want. You can't escape me, he's mine." Rex froze, his ears twitched, his body stiffened, and then Daniel saw it. Rex wasn't just running, he was calculating. His gaze flicked from tree to tree, from soldier to soldier, as if tracing the battlefield. Then, he looked at Daniel. Daniel swallowed hard. "You've got a plan, don't you?" Rex growled low, as if answering. Rex is no longer just reacting, he's thinking ahead. What is his plan? And can Daniel trust it with their lives? They reached a ravine, the ground falling away into a deep, rushing river. The current foamed, violent and deadly. Evelyn's voice broke. "We're trapped." The soldiers closed in behind them, rifles raised. Hale stepped forward, his face illuminated by firelight. Calm, certain. "Nowhere left to run," he said. "Hand him over, Daniel, or watch everyone you care about burn." Daniel's heart pounded. He glanced at Rex. Rex didn't hesitate. He ran. Straight at the edge. For a terrifying second, Daniel thought the shepherd was leaping to his death, but Rex stopped at the very edge, turned back, and barked sharply. Once, twice. A command. Daniel's breath caught. "He wants us to jump." Evelyn's eyes widened in horror. "We'll drown." Daniel met Rex's gaze, and in those burning golden eyes he saw no fear, only certainty. He gritted his teeth. "Trust him." He grabbed Evelyn's hand, and together, with Rex leading the way, they leapt into the roaring river. The icy water swallowed them whole. Daniel's chest seized, lungs screaming as the current dragged him under. Evelyn thrashed beside him, her scream muffled by the rushing water. Rex was gone. Panic clawed at Daniel. He kicked hard, hauling Evelyn upward. They broke the surface. Gasping, but the river spun them like rag dolls. "Daniel!" Evelyn's voice cracked as a wave crashed over her. He reached for her hand, fingers slipping. The current was too strong. Then, out of the chaos, Rex appeared. The shepherd swam with terrifying power, cutting through the water like a wolf born of the river. He grabbed Evelyn's sleeve in his teeth, dragging her toward Daniel. Just when, it seems the river will take them, Rex appears as their lifeline. The current hurled them into jagged rocks. Daniel's shoulder exploded with pain. Blood clouded the water, but Rex never let go. His jaws stayed locked on Evelyn's sleeve, his eyes blazing. Finally, the current flung them toward a fallen tree, spanning the river. Daniel clawed at the bark, hauling himself up, dragging Evelyn with him. They collapsed, coughing, choking, shivering. Rex pulled himself onto the log, water streaming from his fur, chest heaving. Evelyn sobbed, clutching him. "How you saved us again?" Daniel's voice was raw. "No, he chose to save us. That wasn't instinct, that was command." But the river hadn't ended their nightmare. From the far bank, through the smoke and flames, Hale's voice echoed again. "You can't hide in rivers and trees forever, Daniel. He's mine, and I'll burn every forest, drain every river until I have him back." Daniel's stomach sank. Hale wasn't chasing them blindly. He was forcing them deeper, herding them. And Daniel knew the truth. The hunter wasn't done. This was only the beginning. Night fell heavy as they dragged themselves onto dry land. Their clothes clung like lead, bodies shaking from cold. Evelyn collapsed beside the fire Daniel scraped together, her face pale, lips blue. Daniel looked at Rex, lying near the flames, steam rising from his fur. Despite exhaustion, his eyes stayed open, watching. Always watching. Daniel whispered, almost to himself, "You're not just surviving anymore, are you? You're leading us. You're becoming something else." Evelyn stirred, her voice weak. "If that's true, then Hale won't stop. He'll destroy everything to get him back." Rex lifted, his head staring into the dark forest. His ears twitched, his body stiffened. Daniel followed his gaze and froze. Glinting in the shadows, dozens of small red lights blinked. Not eyes. Laser sights. The forest erupted with movement. Dozens of Hale's men surrounding them. Just when Daniel and Evelyn thought they'd escaped, Hale's forces encircled them. This time, there's nowhere to run. The forest was alive with red dots, dozens of laser sights cutting through the darkness, painting Daniel, Evelyn, and Rex like prey. Evelyn froze, her breath ragged. "We're surrounded." Daniel gritted his teeth. rifle raised though he knew it was useless against so many. "Then we fight till we can't." Rex stood in front of them both, his body low, growl vibrating through the night. His eyes glowed gold in the firelight, and for the first time Daniel realized Rex wasn't just protecting them, he was commanding them to stay behind him. Viewers are pulled into the impossible standoff. What can one man, one woman, and one dog do against an army? The soldiers parted, forming a wide circle, and from the shadows Hale stepped forward. His uniform was dark, pristine, his face calm. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to suffocate. "The night, Daniel," Hale's voice carried like a whip, sharp and certain. "Enough games, you've run far enough. The shepherd is mine, hand him over and you walk away alive, both of you." Daniel spat into the dirt. "Not a chance." Hale tilted his head. "Then you've made your choice." He snapped his fingers. The soldiers raised their rifles. The forest trembled with the metallic click of safeties off. Evelyn's hand found Daniel's, squeezing tight. Tears welled in her eyes. "Daniel, it's over." But Rex didn't flinch. He stepped forward, growl turning into something deeper, something primal, commanding. His fur bristled, his chest heaved, and then he barked, not once, not twice, but in a rapid sequence, sharp, deliberate, like coded commands. Daniel froze. Evelyn gasped, and the soldiers hesitated, because in that moment Rex's voice wasn't just a dog's bark, it was a leader's cry, a language of war. The soldiers shifted uneasily. Some lowered their weapons, confused. Hale's calm cracked. His voice rose in fury. "Ignore him! Fire!" The first shot rang out. Daniel tackled Evelyn down as bullets ripped through the clearing. Bark splintered, dirt exploded, smoke choked the air. And then the unthinkable happened. Rex charged. Straight into the gunfire, Daniel screamed, "Rex!" But the shepherd didn't falter. He darted left then right, weaving through bullets with impossible speed. He leapt onto one soldier, tearing him down, then spun to rip the rifle from another's hands. Chaos erupted. Soldiers panicked. Rex wasn't just fighting. He was directing the battle, forcing enemies into each other's line of fire. Daniel rose, gun blazing, covering Evelyn as she scrambled to safety. Bullets tore past, screams filled the night, and through it all, Rex stood like a storm, unyielding. But Hale didn't fire. He watched, waiting, calculating. Finally, as bodies fell and the clearing turned into chaos, Hale drew his pistol. His eyes locked on Rex. This ends now. The shot thundered. The world slowed. Rex lunged, not at Hale, but at Daniel, shoving him to the ground. The bullet struck Rex square in the chest. He fell, a strangled yelp tearing through the night. Daniel's scream ripped from his soul. "No!" The battle froze. Soldiers stopped. Evelyn dropped the files, sobbing uncontrollably. Rex lay still, blood staining the earth, his golden eyes dimming. Daniel crawled to him, cradling his head, tears pouring down his face. "Stay with me, boy. Please. You can't leave now. Not like this." Evelyn's voice broke. He saved you. He chose you." Hale's voice was ice. Pathetic. Even at the end, just a dog. But then, Rex moved. Barely. His chest rose with one last breath, his eyes dim but burning, locked onto Daniel's. And in that silence, Daniel understood. Rex wasn't saying goodbye. He was giving an order, a command. Daniel's grief hardened into fury. He laid Rex gently on the ground, stood and turned to Hale with fire in his eyes. "You're wrong," Daniel growled. "He's not just a dog, he's my brother, and tonight you pay for everything." Rex's apparent death ignites Daniel's final stand against Hale. Viewers are pulled to the edge, desperate to see justice. The clearing burned with smoke and firelight. Daniel rose like a man possessed, gun in hand, fury boiling through his veins. Soldiers wavered, unsure, their formation shattered. Evelyn stood behind him, tears streaking her face, clutching the files like her last weapon. And across the carnage, Hale stood tall, calm, smiling. "You think rage will save you, Daniel?" He sneered. "You think one broken mutt can inspire victory? You're a fool." Daniel raised his rifle. No, I think he already won. The final battle erupted. Daniel moved with purpose, every shot precise, every motion fueled by Rex's sacrifice. Soldiers fell, scattering in confusion. Evelyn ducked and fired the pistol Daniel had given her, surprising herself as she hit her mark. But Hale pressed forward, cutting through his own men, pistol barking fire. He and Daniel closed. The distance, weapons clashing, fists striking. The forest shook with their fury. At last Hale's pistol flew from his hand. The two men crashed to the ground, grappling in the dirt. Hale's strength was brutal. His hand wrapped around Daniel's throat, choking the life from him. "You can't win," Hale snarled. "Without that animal, you're nothing." "Hand then." Rex moved. The shepherd, broken and bleeding, dragged himself to his paws. His body shook. His breaths came shallow, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. With one last surge of will, Rex lunged, his jaws clamped down on Hale's arm. The commander screamed, grip loosening. Daniel seized the moment. He wrenched free, grabbed Hale's own pistol and fired. The shot echoed through the forest. Hale staggered, eyes wide, and fell lifeless to the ground. Silence. Daniel collapsed, beside Rex, gathering him in his arms. Evelyn knelt too, sobbing. Rex's breathing was shallow. His eyes flickered. Daniel's tears fell onto his fur. "You did it, boy," Daniel whispered, voice breaking. "You saved us. You saved everyone. You can rest now." Evelyn stroked his head gently. He wasn't just a dog. He was a hero. Rex's gaze lingered on Daniel one last time, soft and steady. Then, with a final exhale, his body went still. Daniel's sob tore through the night. He buried his face in Rex's fur, holding him tight, refusing to let go. The dawn came slow. The soldiers who survived fled into the forest, leaderless and broken. The fire burned out, leaving only ash. Daniel and Evelyn sat together, Rex's body between them. The files lay at their side, evidence of a monstrous program, a story the world would one day hear. But for Daniel, none of it mattered. All he saw was the empty space where his brother, his protector, his soldier had been. Weeks later, Rex's story spread. News outlets spoke of the shepherd that saved lives. People lit candles, laid flowers, built monuments. But Daniel knew the truth, that Rex's legacy wasn't just about survival. It was about sacrifice, loyalty, and love. One night, Daniel visited Rex's grave beneath the oak tree by the lake. Evelyn stood beside him, silent. Daniel whispered, "I'll never forget you, not as a weapon, not as a soldier, but as family." The wind stirred the leaves, and for a moment, Daniel could almost hear a familiar bark in the distance, steady, commanding, eternal. Rex's story wasn't about war. It was about love, loyalty, and sacrifice, a bond stronger than anything Hale could ever control. If Rex's sacrifice touched your heart as much as it did mine, make sure to hit that like button, share this story with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more powerful stories, like this one. And now I want to hear from you. Do you believe dogs like Rex can truly feel and understand love the way humans do? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading every single one.